Hello everyone, I'm Kayla Williams with the Maury County Chamber and Economic Alliance, and I am here today for our newest edition of our Small Business Spotlight video. And I'm thrilled to be here with my friend James Evans at Farmstead Market, downtown Columbia. So James, thanks for having us today.
Thanks for coming out here
All
to
right.
Farmstead.
So before we get to talking about Farmstead and Vintage Winery, because we're going to talk about that too. So before we get there, talk about James Evans. Who's James Evans? I know you live in Culleoka, and you've recently opened some businesses in downtown Columbia, but how'd you get to Culleoka? Because you're not originally from here.
Well, my people are from here, so going back several generations, my dad's family specifically is started out in College Grove area, and then my great grandfather was a teacher at Spring Hill High, the brand new Spring Hill School in the 30s, and then when Spring Hill kind of burned to the ground there in the 30s, they moved down to Columbia with my grandma and my great grandfather, and he was a teacher at Columbia Military Academy back in the day. And my dad actually lived in one of the buildings when he was a young kid on CMA campus, and so my dad grew up here throughout his life until he went to college, and he was in the Air Force and spent a career in the Air Force. So I was an Air Force brat. So the first thing I did when I graduated high school was get in the Air Force myself, and I was in the Air Force for 30 years. So, my entire life has been moving every 2 years, but up until 2 years ago when I retired. But Columbia has always been one of those anchor points because we'd always come to Columbia for holidays and in the summer and go to Opryland and all those types of things. So Columbia is kind of my home because I never had a real home being a military brat and then a career in the military myself. So I considered myself Tennessean, Colombian, and when I retired in 2019, I moved here. We were originally going to move to East Tennessee, but we saw this great farm in Culleoka when we were here, I think in 2018 for Christmas, that was for sale. Historic farm down in Culleoka, and we said, well, we could sell our land and our house in Wallen in East Tennessee before this house sells. We'll just change our lives on a spur of the moment and move here because all our family's here. And we sold our house in a couple weeks, and we were able to purchase the farm in Culleoka and made that snap life decision to live in Columbia. Because when we grew up, when I was coming back here, Columbia was not a place I came to.
Yeah.
I mean, my grandparents lived on the north side of the river, and we'd come visit them often, but we would go to like Opryland or things like that, or just hang out. There's really no reason to come to the square.
Theme park.
Yeah, back in the day when
Yeah.
And so when over the years, Pockets came in and Muletown came in, coffee. You could just see the square changing, from 2010, 2012, whenever it started changing. The square market's been there for a while, Ted's. So as we saw that, we were like, well, my wife is from Brentwood, and so we were like, we could live in that area, but now that looks a little bit bougie to us. But then as we kind of kept coming to visit relatives here, we're like, you know what, we could live in Columbia now. I never thought we would do that because it just didn't have that appeal to us until the past maybe 8 or 10 years. So, so we did that, and there's friends like Chris Coyne who owns Muletown Coffee. Me and him were in the Air Force together, and we just randomly ran into each other in the square. And it's like, you live here? Yeah, I live here. Yeah, and now we have businesses around the corner from each other, and we worked in the same office for 7 years.
And I think that's how we got connected too, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's just strange how life happens, and we're in Columbia, and I do miss mountains a little bit, but not enough that I would want to leave here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your Air Force career. So what'd you do in the Air Force?
So in the Air Force, I primarily did public affairs and marketing.
Yeah.
So I worked, at the Air Force Academy. I was the marketing director at the Air Force Academy for a few years. Worked in the Pentagon in public affairs. I was a public affairs director for the Florida National Guard down in St. Augustine for a few years, and Alabama, Colorado several times, Virginia. So I moved around quite a bit, especially in the Southeast with the Air Force.
So we could probably do a whole series just on your experiences through the Air Force. So, yeah.
There's some experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your service. But
Sure.
now, fast forward, and you've opened Farmstead Market and Vintage Winery.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about about this store. If you've not been in yet, it's downtown Columbia. Just one of the coolest places. There's something for everybody in here. So tell us the idea and the mission behind Farmstead Market.
Yeah, so after 30-something years in the government, I wanted to do something totally different. So we wanted to do farming, and we wanted to do specifically agritourism related type of farming. So when we bought the farm down in Colioca, we were looking for an opportunity to get into that aspect of farming, to kind of reconnect people back to real food and how a sustainable family farm would have been in the 19th century, 20th century, and provide wholesome, sustainable, organic food from the local community, so that people know where it comes from and who's making their food. So that's kind of the genesis of how we got here. So when we decided to do agritourism, we looked around and saw that the winery industry was growing in this area, and we said, yeah, we can do that. We like wine. so we got into getting a vineyard and planting grapes and the whole winery thing, and then we also have pasture-raised chickens and pasture eggs and all that sort of stuff, and vegetables that we wanted a place to sell. So we opened this store as kind of a gourmet farmers market, your everyday place where you can come in and get your Taylor Family Farms organic chicken or pig and leaf pork. We do have some more well-known brands from other parts of Tennessee, like Benton's Bacon and Benton's Sausage and Benton's Prosciutto, because it is just so good as well.
And the True Honey, I've had that before.
Yeah, and then we mainly stay to South Central Tennessee type of products, and we mainly stay sustainable, organic pantry items and vegetables and so forth. But we do pull from other places. We may have moon pies and whatnot just for fun as well.
And speaking of pies, what day is today?
Oh yeah, today
so it's
is
Friday Fried Pie Day?
It's Friday Fried Pies from Linville Fried Pie Market.
Yes.
It's down by, not too far from the farm in Colioca, so we bring fried pies from Linville every Friday to last the weekend.
I don't think it was an accident that we came on Friday Fried Pie Day. So the eggs, so that you've got farm fresh eggs, so you've got farm fresh produce.
Right.
You've also got lots of other products that you could use, natural products. You've got Colioca Company's cleaning products. You've got food items. You've even got gardening tools and the cutest little rubber gardening shoes. And so there's really a little bit of everything in here.
Yeah, well, we want to stay in our lane because we have other great stores on the square, and they provide what they do. So Faded Farmhouse is great for textiles and dishes and other farm products, and you have Smith & York that has culinary items as well.
Right.
And so our goal is just to stay with food and gardening products specifically. So we're really going to focus on pantry items that are from local artisans and local farmers. We're going to stick with a small amount of meat. We have Tallgrass, who's the big butcher in town that everybody should support. But we do have it for convenience. We have just organic meats here that you can get. We have organic broths if you want to do the broth thing for your health but really when you come here, it's about the farmstead. So the artisan products and pantry items and produce and meat and gardening tools to support your own farmstead.
Yeah, it's a really neat place. So before we break, we're going to go, in just a minute, we're going next door to Vintage Winery. So we're going to have a different backdrop, and we're going to talk about your other ag product, which is vintage wine. But tell everybody where you're located.
So the Farmstead Market is here on North Main at 614 North Main, between Destiny Church and Vintage Winery, around the corner from Marcy Joe.
Yeah.
At the shops at 6th and Main.
That's right. So, all right. Well, we're going to take a.
Well, let me add one thing. And also part of our one of our market partners, and it's in the next door room, is Nashville Olive Oil Company. So I'd be amiss if I didn't mention them because they were helpful in helped me start this whole endeavor, and they have a full service tasting room next door with all their balsamic vinegars and olive oils as well.
All right, so we're going to take a pause, and then you and I are going to move over to Vintage Winery, and we're going to talk more specifically. We're going to talk grapes and wine.
Let's go.
All right, let's go. All right, welcome back, everybody. Through the magic of technology, James and I have changed locations. So now I'm with James Evans at Vintage Winery, which is right next door to Farmstead Market, and also a James Evans adventure, and maybe one of the more fun. I don't know, but you really shouldn't come to one store without coming to the other. So you can go to Farmstead first and get your produce, and then come over here and get some of your wine to go with your meal that you're preparing.
Absolutely.
So how did you get into the wine business other than maybe just liking wine?
Well, I do like wine, and like I mentioned before, we were looking at agritourism and things that we could do with our farm to support that and to support the community, and bring something different that wasn't in Columbia, like the Farmstead Market and Vintage Winery. So we had an opportunity to buy a vineyard in Gibson County, and so we bought a vineyard that was in production. So that got us kind of jump started in the winery process. We didn't have to start with brand new grapevines and wait 3 or 4 years for them to get commercial production stage and all that. So that helped us out by a couple of years. And so we bought that vineyard in Gibson County, and we started the vineyard in Culleoka on our farm. And we started making wine with this past harvest, and we partnered with Crown Winery, which is in Humboldt, Tennessee, also in Gibson County, an established winery that's been around since about 2007. So between the two of us, we grow and make the wine, and we have several different brands. We have the Crown Winery brand, we have the Impressions brand, which is labels that we derive from our local area and have paintings done in an impressionistic style to add some interest to it. We have our Farmstead brand to coincide with the Farmstead store and our Pull Mill farm down in Culleoka. And so these are really, really authentic Tennessee wines, made single vineyard, made in the same place that they're harvested. And they just taste really rustic and organic, and we get a lot of positive comments from, as people know, we get a lot of Californians moving to Maury and Williamson County, and they'll come in for the wine experience, and they're surprised because the grapes, they're not familiar with the grapes, because we don't grow the Chardonnay, Cabernet, Zinfandel here because they don't grow well in Tennessee without a lot of inputs like the sprays and stuff. So we just choose to grow the grapes that will grow well in our soil, which are things like Norton, a native grape, Muscadine, of course, and French hybrids like Chamberson, Chardonnay, Maury, and then we just try to do those the best that we can so that they stand on their own. I don't like to compare them as like a Cabernet or it's like a Pinot. People always ask me, well, what's like a Pinot Noir? Well, a Pinot Noir is like a Pinot Noir, but we have a Chamberson, and here's what a Chamberson tastes like. And don't expect it to taste like a California or European grape because it's in the South and it's hot and sweaty down here.
It's different.
And it's different. And we have the conversation. If you ever look at a Muscadine, what's different from a Muscadine grape than a cluster grape that you would associate with a Cabernet? Well, the Muscadines are almost singular, and a Cabernet or a Chardonnay, they're like clusters that are tight. So what's problem is the clustered grapes, they get all the mildew and rot because it's wet and humid, and you have to spray. But the Muscadine, which grows naturally without any effort almost, it has lots of airflow, and they're not all put together like that. And so we have that conversation, and we try to educate and inform people about the farming practices and why certain grapes grow here and why we don't grow the other grapes that they're more familiar with. Now, we do have the Polk collection up there, and we do that because most people know Polk is from Columbia. His family moved here in the early 1800s. And
from North Carolina.
From North Carolina. And he did more for Western expansion of the United States than any other president, and he brought California, Oregon, and Texas into the Union during his presidency. And it makes sense because he was a frontiersman himself.
Right.
He always knew that more land brought more dollars and more opportunity, so that was his focus. And so what we like to do with the pulp collection is, like I said, we don't grow the grapes here because we can't, but we can source the grapes from California and have the wine made. And then we can have that tribute to our heritage. You know, part of California's heritage right now is their wine country. And that is not any small part due to Colombia, because it was our homegrown boy who brought California into the nation. And we want to make that connection and kind of pay a little bit of tribute to Colombia to bring in that manifest destiny, as it was called back then. And so we have a pulp collection of wines that are mainly from California, but we may rotate in some Oregon and Texas wine over the years just to keep it fresh, just to kind of bring that remembrance of our history and heritage to our place as well. And if you look around our garage here, it's full of memorabilia and pictures from West 7th Company of kind of what they call Petroliana, you know, gas station and car lot old photos. So and it has the captions and discusses what these photos were of. So it's a real talking point when people come in here just to walk around, almost like a gallery while they're having a wine.
Yeah. So you haven't mentioned a few of my favorites, or at least my very favorite wines. So you have a collection. So you've got peach and cherry and strawberry and all those things. But my personal favorite is the cranberry rosé. And you did something special right before the holidays with your cranberry rosé, because one thing that's very important to you is giving back. So what did you do with your special cranberry edition that you did before the holidays?
Yeah, so like I said, we're bringing these businesses, specifically the Columbia downtown, to help elevate Columbia as a community and bring stores that aren't here and bring it here to add to the attraction of downtown Columbia. And one of our efforts is Drink with Purpose, and so that's a series of about a half a dozen wines that will roll out over every couple of months that will benefit a charity in Maury County. And so the first one we did was our very first month open in December, and it was Maury Christmas. I didn't come up with the name, as you know, and I didn't come up with the cockier mule. That's Bryson Leach.
On the label.
That was on the label, but we got together with Bryson Leach over at Needle and Grain and the museum. Of course, they had a rough time last year because of COVID, kind of hindered some of their fundraising efforts. So we thought it'd be a good idea to put that Merry Christmas seasonal cranberry wine out there, and we sold it for a cause, and it was pretty well received. It was our best-selling wine for sure in the month of December. It still is one of our best-selling wines, even though it's in its normal cranberry rosé label. People still come back for it.
It is really, really a good wine, and I'm not a wine connoisseur, and I'm not a real educated wine drinker, but the cranberry is absolutely delicious, and I really hats off to you, and thank you so much for having your wine and having a cause behind it, and helping not just bring business, but also bringing awareness to some of our nonprofits, and helping just elevate the whole community across the board, business and nonprofit, and just the sense of community that's here. So it is a cool place to come, but I bet you there's somebody out there who hadn't been here yet. So tell them where you're located. What are the hours? Can I come in for a tasting in case I don't know what I want to buy?
So this is a tasting room. That's our primary goal, is to educate and inform people on wine and Tennessee wine specifically. So if you come here, expect to come to the tasting bar. We're sitting at stools, but usually you don't have stools here.
Right.
You stand here, and we provide tastings of the wine and talk you through its production and its flavor profiles, so that you know what you like. One time we had a lady say, I'm 35 years old, I've never had wine before. Never had alcohol before, actually. I don't know what I like. So I start with, okay, here's our red Zinfandel, it's the driest one I have, and here's our strawberry strut, pure strawberry juice wine. Which one do you like better? And then we kind of move in until we found out, okay, you're a Moscato drinker. So God forbid you ever go to a grocery store and need to get wine, you know you like Moscato. So you can come here and get your blackberry and peach Moscato.
Yeah.
But that's just an example of how we try to educate people. And then we have the conversations like why muscadine grows well in the South and try to inform people of that.
So where are you located?
We're located at 616 North Main, next to Farmstead Market and Marcy Joe's at the roundabout.
Yeah, you're on the corner.
Yeah, the old Starvin' Marvin's.
The old Starvin' Marvin garage.
Right.
And what are your hours?
We are open most days 12 to 6, and on the weekends 12 to 8.
Perfect. And what about social media or website? Where can we find out more information, or where can we follow what's going on with farmers, with Farmstead Market or with Vintage Winery?
So you can go to @vintage.winery on Instagram or at farmstead.market on Instagram.
Perfect. All right. James, thank you again so much, not just for your investment in these two businesses, but your entire investment in our community. And I want to thank you for being part of the Leadership Maury program, leadership class of 2021. Been an interesting year, but a great group of people. So you'll be part of history just by being a Leadership Maury alum and by being one of our entrepreneurs here in downtown Columbia.
Yeah, it's been great. Some of my classmates are selling their wares in our stores, and are you know, are a lot of our business partners now, for sure.
It's awesome. All right, James, thank you. Thank you for all you do. Come see James at Farmstead Market or at Vintage Winery, but you really should plan on doing both. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you downtown Columbia.